Hey Jamie, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Kurt?
Well, we've had a little hiatus. However, it's still cold in Michigan.
Yeah, not cold here, but I see you have a nice scarf.
I do. Thanks to you. I've got my beautiful Verde on. Austin Football Club. And
Very
so,
nice.
yeah, it's spring by the terms of the calendar, but it's not really that warm here in Michigan. I don't know what it, I mean. I think for you down south, it gets warm before this. But so, well, here's what happens in Michigan pretty much every year. So before the spring, right, the 21st or 22nd, right, of March, we'll get a nice weekend, and we're like, all hopeful. Oh God. I actually went, me and Danielle went out into the yard and started moving some garden stuff around and
You're
digging
like
dirt,
planning, you're thinking,
shoveling, things like that. That was 2 weeks ago. And ever since then, it's been uncomfortably chilly, windy. Actually, this past weekend, snow, both Saturday and Sunday,
yeah,
which
not snow here.
which
Definitely
just
not.
put a damper on all the attitudes. You
Oh,
know,
I totally imagine it would. I mean, yeah, you're
we're so we get to this point where we're at the brink of like transition, change, seasonal change, Vivaldi, the four seasons, right? We're not there yet. We're still waiting for that change in the season. Is that too far of a stretch, the Vivaldi?
I wasn't sure where you were going, but
You know that
sometimes that
everyone.
happens. I mean, I do know that you have an affinity for the chamber music. So, and we were talking about museums a little while ago. So I get it. I see how you got there.
Well, I think more people know the Vivaldi Four Seasons than they know what it's called.
Well,
It's
I think they know
very
that
famous.
because of Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. Hey, whatever vehicle gets the
Hey,
point
the
across.
medium is the message, you know.
Yes. Speaking of medium, so you took advantage of our shared account, the Coffee Sketch Twitter account, and
Yes.
posted some past, I guess, what Kurt's been doing in his pastime, which is testing out technology, different media. And I don't know if this is going to come up very well, but
But
print
I
number
can,
one,
yeah.
3D print. So I bought a 3D printer. Here's the thing. Now that I'm teaching, is there's a cat over there. Yeah, well, I've got an owl. So owl versus cat. So I teach, right? So another faculty member said to the students, like, "Oh, so there. I don't know if you have Micro Center. I don't know if it's that widespread. It's like a computer store right here in Michigan."
Those things still exist.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so there's one, right, called
Is
Micro
it
Center.
and is it like right next to Radio Shack?
No, I don't think a Radio Shack could compete with Micro Center. So Micro Center is as big as like a Walmart, but just for tech stuff.
And it feels like you're in Stranger Things, like when you walk in there.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a whole section on like they call it maker stuff, but it's like what you would have found in a Radio Shack, right? Like soldering kits and diodes and chips and
Floppy disks.
that's another thing. It's another aside. Trying to explain to my students what a floppy disk is, but it's funny.
You're
Actually,
you're
another.
feel you're I know a birthday's coming up, so you're just sort of like For everybody who's like still with us at this point in this episode, Kurt is feeling a little older. So
yeah. So I'm at Micro Center, and so they have a 3D printer that is normally $199.
so hold on. Kurt got in his DeLorean and like drove to Micro Center. Okay, keep going.
Yep. Yeah. And so it's normally $199. Online coupon half off. So $99. A 3D printer. An Ender 3 Pro 3D printer, which made this owl. And a few other things. I've got other props.
That's a pretty great test print. I mean, if I opened up the box and they were like, okay, here's some things that you can use to test print, pick one, and one of them happens to be an owl, I'm thinking that David Lynch has like entered the chat. So that's pretty great.
And thank God it worked. So maybe there is an owl or two for you and Jason. Oh shit, sorry. Pardon me. I dropped my owl. I'll put it down now before I throw it around the microphone. Maybe an owl or two may find their way over to you. So anyway, so actually that brought up another fun story with the students, and I'll turn it over to you in a second here. But so we're going on a field trip very soon, right? So this weekend we're going to Cincinnati. And I was trying to explain to students how when I was a student, and I think you would probably relate to this, is I enjoyed visiting other cities once becoming an architecture student to then try and track down particular buildings of note in these new cities.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, so then I was trying to explain this sort of mindset to my current students and said, we did all this before Google Maps existed and Google Earth and Google all together.
Right.
And they were like, oh, I totally forgot that was a thing that didn't exist when you were a student. How did you do it? And I was like, well, so before Google Maps existed, we had things called maps. Paper maps. How to get to place, and word of mouth. I mean, you basically would take someone who had been there, you find, and they would tell you like, okay, turn left, turn right, turn left. And then you'd find so-and-so's project, building project, a house or whatever. Frank Lloyd Wright, or for us, like on the West Coast, Frank Gehry or something like that. Morphosis, whatever, for the California stuff. So I don't know. I mean, does that resonate with you?
Absolutely.
The sort of urbaneering, architecture explorations.
Well, and even just, I think for when you go to school in Texas, in a relatively small college town where the university is like the big thing, the opportunity to get out and about, there's my Canadian, out and about into the bigger cities, just even in Texas. Yeah, the field trip, first of all, it's of course with professors, but then it's the opportunity to kind of go out and explore, and you're reading about particular projects, especially ones that are relatively new, and you see them in a magazine, or somebody else has, like you said, been there and seen it and said, oh, well, you have to go. And it's that sort of urban exploration, or suburban, or rural, as the case may be, I think is pretty remarkable. I mean, Lake Flato's early work here in Texas was something that we would often try and go and find. Yeah, I mean, and then fortunate, that Texas driving distances, people would go to Houston and Dallas and San Antonio and Austin, Fort Worth to go find projects in big cities as well, especially as new things kind of came online. But travel, I mean, study abroad, just vacations, trips like that, it just starts to become something that you've kind of got always a running list
Mm-hmm.
of places, not just places you'd like to visit, but when you're there and enjoying dinner out with friends, oh well, there's this one building I want to kind of
Right.
sneak over and take a peek at.
Exactly. Yeah. Good. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. I didn't think I was the only one. I knew I had a feeling you would agree. Although I do feel like this generation of students are not necessarily, they're not quite there yet. I don't know. There's
Well,
this
I
sort
mean,
of digitization, like the fact that they can see so much online keeps them from being as curious. But I tried to
well,
explain to them, like, the photo of the building that you're going to see is like this perfect shot. But
right.
understanding a building from turning that corner that you can't see is where you start to understand how, as an architect, you have to develop the full picture. Like you're designing an entire working structure, right? So what's behind the corner, what I mean, that is not in
No,
the photo.
absolutely. I mean, it's experiencing the place, and I think you're right. I think there's all of us. I mean, ourselves included. There's you get a new project. I mean, we get new projects, and we can't necessarily always go see them, but you're on the phone with somebody, and you have the ability to pull it up on your laptop or your computer, and you can see the site that they're talking about. It might not be the most current photo, but you can effectively drive around and kind of not just see the particular project site because someone sent you a photo or you can pull it up, but you can actually sort of drive around and see the neighborhood a little bit. So that sense of discovery that only could happen before by going there, that experience has changed. I mean, I know it's changed for me. But what's funny is the the literal experience of a place as a designer. I mean, I'm not just talking about as a person going somewhere to visit, but as a designer, I personally still can see the marked difference in my perception of a particular place and project when I haven't been there and when I have been there. And even in my sort of creative process, my interest level is much higher.
Yeah.
My instincts are sharper. Ideas are much more elaborate, and the not elaborate isn't even the right word. I think they're richer as concepts, and I think a lot of that has to do with you're really connecting with the subject matter. And it's not that the other work is any less valuable, but it's certainly different. And what it makes me think of, not to belabor the point, but when you're talking about architectural works that are published and that perfect shot or something like that, and kind of the artificialness of it, I have talked to Sterling. Sterling will join us on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because architectural photographer, quite talented with that architecture background as well. One thing that I thought of when I see those, when you're saying that, and when I'm thinking of those architecture photos, is one of my professors, my mentor, when he was reviewing works as sort of an architectural critic, he always made the point that I'm not going to really pass judgment on a project until I actually go and see it.
Yep.
No matter how many times somebody sends me, here's 10 photos and the floor plans and the whole bit, and I could read the plan, and just like anybody else, the experience of the place, that walking around the detail that you're talking about, really seeing it executed in 3 dimensions, it really makes a difference. And then how buildings age or how places age. If you kind of go back to works that you maybe didn't get to see in their first run, but you get to see them 10, 15 years later, and you were a big fan when it first came out, but didn't get to see it. And then you finally do. What's your impression of the place then? Does it hold up? Do the ideas, the concepts hold up, or were they trendy?
Yeah.
So I think all those things become really valuable. And I think that you're maybe being a little too critical of your students, but maybe you'll have a different view after your field trip. I mean, I've never been to Cincinnati. I definitely would like to go. Of course, I have one building that I would love for you to go and see. It's the only Zaha project in Cincy. For a
Mhm.
long time, it was the only Zaha project in the United States.
Right. Yep.
So
Oh, it's on my list. It's
yeah,
high on the list for sure. And
I mean that
we'll be in the vicinity for
I
sure.
mean that floor plane that becomes
Mhm.
wall. Ooh,
And the interior stair, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we're going. I've been actually touting or promoting to the students. I was like, this is the first Zaha building in America for a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah, for a very long time.
And
Yeah,
actually, I did
exactly.
mention the aging aspect too, just yesterday when I was in class, because that's the last time I'll see them until tomorrow night. So yeah, I appreciate that it sort of reinforces a lot of the same thoughts that I had in my mind. So that's been very fun. Yes, I will not pass judgment on my students yet.
Good, good.
No, I think there's still quite a few that are. It's really it's one of those things, when it sounds like a generalization when I try and blanketly sort of say these things. It's not necessarily true. There's always still a range of reactions that you get from
Well,
super interest to medium to lower and all that stuff.
I'll say here, as you're saying that and not passing judgment, we've talked a little bit about how we all got into architecture and kind of our different viewpoints about it along the way, and how we're still jaded at times. But it is sometimes fun to look back. And my literal first field trip in architecture school was to the Kimball. So after that, it's like, you know,
Actually,
you know,
it's kind of interesting is that on the West Coast, I do remember distinctly a field trip, and we went to the Salk. Among well, we also went to the neurosciences building, which is Todd Williams' Billy Cent, right? So I mean, on top of which is also in the San Diego area, but I mean,
that's pretty good.
I
Yeah.
know, right? But the Salk, I don't know if you've made it to the Salk Institute in person
I've
yet.
not. I've not. It is still one of the ones on my list.
And I've not made it to the Kimball, and hopefully soon I can.
Well, and and having experienced con, you have, and I as well. The thing that Kimball trip was, when you talk about experiencing a place and not just in photos or a plan or something like that. Of course, we had studied it in our architecture survey class and all that stuff. But what was interesting, and we even knew this, that there's some different ways to approach the building. And the thing that our professor was trying to show us was kind of his favorite approach, some of his favorite spaces. And so there's a personalization of it. And at that point, I think that's where everything becomes more human. And even in those moments where you're being criticized, or the work is really critical, or this line isn't the right line weight and all that other garbage, when you also have the parallel experience of walking around a site and seeing how your classmates, your professor are interacting with a space, and then having conversations about it, and then recognizing that this is a masterwork, is pretty influential. At the time, you know, I knew it was influential and I knew it was important, but kind of looking back at it and having the opportunity to do that, I think also is sort of valuable too. That introspection, not everybody has it in the same way or accesses it the same way, but that's why I say give your students, cut them a little slack. So,
Well, we'll see. I mean, this conversation will actually be very useful as we approach the weekend, because we'll be there. So Friday late afternoon, Sunday or Saturday all day, and then Sunday morning. So there's like a nice span of time we get to see.
nice.
So yeah, thanks. I
Sure.
appreciate it. Maybe you'll see some snapshots of the of the excursion as we
And
go.
some sketches, I hope.
Actually, speaking of which, the other day, so I'm a pretty cool teacher, I think. And so a couple weeks ago, when things were relatively low key, as the kids like to say these days, they were like, "Oh, what's the name of the company that you have?" And I was like, "Oh," and then they went to my website and they're like, "Podcast." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I have a podcast." And then I started telling them about Jamie's Facebook page and Twitter, and it's like most of the work is my friend Jamie's sketches that we talk about on the podcast. And then he started looking at your sketches. So you may have picked up a few followers from that one day. I try not to talk about it too much, like during the semester, because I don't want it to be like, big deal.
Yeah. Oh,
And
no.
As things wear on, get toward the end, then I can
kind of slip in and
but
yeah.
I don't want to like what's the word, self-aggrandize or promote.
Right. Yeah. You're like, check out the Instagram
Look at
stuff.
me.
Right. Yeah. Listen to our podcast.
Oh man. So anywho, so I don't know. It is sometimes fun though, because there it wasn't everybody. It was just like a few that were hanging around. Anyway, the ones that think I'm cool, right?
You're
so, like, oh, sorry, what?
I was like, oh, you're like, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, the good part is I can go, well, these aren't my drawings. These are Jamie's drawings.
Yeah. If you don't like this one, it's Jamie's.
No, they all liked it. I bet there was maybe a little micro bump in follower attendees. All right. So thanks for the fun intro. So my only little hint at coffee is over there.
Uh-huh.
It's so far away. So this is my attempt at like
props. Is this props?
Prop and decoration for, at the moment, my studio, call it the studio, is going to get painted. So although don't get too alarmed, the walls are an old white paint in this old plaster building,
and they're going to get a new white paint.
No, it won't be white. I think it's a very light gray.
Okay.
It's a
taupe on taupe.
Yeah, non-committal gray. But I think it'll brighten it up a little bit. And so anywho, so the trim, Daniel did get the trim. You could see the trim's nice and bright white. And I have Rootless, our local roaster here, has this limited edition, and you can barely see it. But let's see if I can even I can't really get that. Yeah, the focus won't work, but it's a bourbon barrel aged limited edition roast.
Oh, it must smell amazing.
It does smell. It's very, it does smell. No, it's very aromatic, super bourbony. Like before I even grind it, and then when you grind it, and then when you drink it, it has that flavor, that smell. And actually, so I pick all this stuff up at the Flint Farmers Market locally here. And there's a little coffee stand in there called Penny's Cafe. And if you haven't followed them on Instagram, it's Penny's Cafe. And the number 2 there, so not the owner, but the number 2, who I was talking to when I was buying this, she said, it's not something she drinks like every day. It's sort of like special occasion. And then we were just talking today about it. So I bought it yesterday. No, what day? Tuesday. I went back there today on my way, picked up some fresh drip coffee on my way to a job site. And I said, hey, yeah, I had some of that bourbon barrel aged stuff. And she said, and I was like, yeah, it's definitely like not, it's super strong, like intense flavor. So for me, I could probably handle it more, probably only because it's the only coffee I have now. So I'm I might
You're
not
working
buy
from an
something.
embargo status. Yeah.
because I'm cheap. No, I don't. So, but her opinion was that it's a little more on the special occasion side. But we discovered we brainstormed today that maybe with a little extra like rum chata or real booze in there with a coffee might like make a toddy out of it, kind of style.
Well, I mean, you've got the weather for that kind of stuff right now. So
We still have toddy weather.
yeah.
So because that it has that strong like boozy bourbon scent, aroma to it, and then throw a little extra actually into it, then it might be. So that's experiment number 2.
That's experiment number 2. Yeah, I actually have the local Cuvée coffee from here in Austin. This is their espresso roast,
Nice.
which is nice. It's actually, I mean, it sounds like it's a real dark roast, but I find it's a lot smoother than most of those kind of espresso kind of blends or something. So
Cool.
it's one of the ones I really like from them.
Is Cuvée the roaster?
Cuvée is the roaster, yeah.
Okay, because you mentioned you've talked about them before.
They actually have a shop as well, so you can go in and it's sort of set up almost like a co-work site, but the majority of their business is the roasting.
Oh, speaking of our friends Rootless, finally got our permit.
Good.
Oh yeah, we got approved, or my drawings got approved for their permit, and so their gas-fired roaster hopefully will be going in soon.
And then it's time for coffee sketch blend.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're on the list.
Mm-hmm.
They're too famous now, so they have to keep us on the wait list.
Right. Right.
But yeah, we're there. I'm glad we got our permit. Yeah, it's
Good.
a very small move of a job. As far as architecturally, it's really a very simple task, but it still required multiple departments to kind of get through. So no, what is it? There are no small jobs,
No small jobs.
only small people. Is it?
I don't know this. I don't know this phrase. Is this a
I'm just kidding.
Michigander? Is this a Michigander phrase? I don't know.
I think it stops at there's no small jobs.
Okay.
I don't know where I came up with that.
So should we talk about a sketch?
Yeah, we should. We're probably making up for a couple of lost weeks from her trying to teach things and stay out of the snow.
Yeah.
So let me share, because it might dawn on people why I'm wearing also this scarf, because we got to support the beautiful game. I also have a student or two on the soccer team at Lawrence Tech.
Very nice.
And it's funny. I was like, hey, I actually did some advising this past couple of weeks, again, keeping me from talking to Jamie. So I did some student advising, and I was like, hey, my good buddy sent me the scarf from Austin Verde. I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't really watch the American soccer. I'm like, it's MLS. He said, well, I'm from Spain, so I watch the European League. Or is it the European League with that Spain, or is it Spanish League?
La Liga.
So is it Spanish only? Like
that's just yeah, there's Spanish only, and then they if they're good enough, then they can play Champions League, and that's when you get the Spanish playing against the English versus the Italian versus the.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to work on it. But my one current student is his dad's an architect, and he's from Valencia.
Oh, okay.
And he did his So he did 2 years in architecture school in Spain at Valencia and played soccer professionally.
Oh, wow.
And now but I guess, I don't know, he's international. So like, because if you come out of high school, right, here in the States, you got to go to college. You can't play professionally and then play college sports, as far as I thought. But being international coming here, I don't know, maybe the rules changed or anywho. So yeah, he's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's pretty good footy stuff.
But he
So
wasn't in class on Wednesday, so none of that matters to me.
like, but you actually have to show up. Yeah.
That's right. So anyway, so Jamie's got a hot, fresh sketch here.
Yeah, so this is a sketch from this week, and it is kind of a nod to the poster art that I love and that we love, and graffiti and muralists. And so in the background, you can see some somewhat familiar kind of stuff. We've talked a little bit about that mural before, but this was effectively like a commission. So I got to do a poster for the women's soccer team here in Austin that is playing professionally. They are a homegrown support local soccer. They were sort of founded as a semi-pro team, opportunity for women in the community who wanted to have play really high level soccer. People who were either had played in college or had pursued sort of professional careers and were back in Austin and looking for an opportunity. So they've had a variety of different players. Some of them have gone back to the pros. One of their players last year is now playing in England. Some of them have played for national teams. So it's a really interesting kind of homegrown grassroots local soccer, but for high level women's sports here in Austin. Austin is a soccer city. And so this is pretty exciting stuff. And I've been fortunate to get to know them and work with their club for a couple of years now. And so they asked if I would help with kind of an art and the beautiful game coinciding for match day posters. And so this is the first one. Their first game is on the weekend. And cool. So in the foreground, you've got sort of player doing tricks on the sidewalk in front of a mural that is celebrating the 19th Amendment. So women's empowerment here in downtown Austin. So real recognizable, huge mural by Shepard Fairey and a Montreal artist, and I just forgot her name.
In the hashtag, Sandra Chevrier.
Yeah. So, and she's from Montreal, of course, so extra nods. But so I got my...
Oh, yeah. That's Shepard Fairey, or is that a collaboration?
This is Shepard Fairey. This is an old one. But yeah, no, I was thinking about trying to come up with ideas. We talk about sort of where the genesis of some of these sketches come from. And this one was what's a real recognizable kind of symbol of women and power and empowerment and celebration in Austin. And this is the mural that sort of the image that kind of came to mind, and did a pretty quick sketch. It's full color on the interwebs, but shown here in black and white, as is the style for the coffee sketch.
So is this one turning into a poster, or was it just a draft?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I scanned this and then did some digital work over the top of it as well.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it now. Because you did send me a little teaser.
Yeah.
Text message photo of the Photoshop work. So I could see the shapes kind of coming together now. Yeah, it's really cool. And how long did this one take?
The whole drawing and color was just under an hour. So cool. Actually was pretty quick because it's fully rendered in color, all hand drawn. So yeah. And then Photoshop stuff took a little bit after that,
Right.
but yeah, just under an hour for the drawing. So which is pretty good. I hadn't done something this big in quite a while. So it was a good test under the gun. And
So
I decided to use some of the familiar sky techniques and sort of employing a few
mhm.
different ideas there.
Yeah, it's actually kind of nice to I was noticing that with the lines in the sky, the rendering, but also because you used, it looks like Prisma marker or something like this. So you used the marker in between the pen work, and so it has another layer of, in this case it's all black and white, but you have like the texture of the pen, or the line weight of the pen versus the line weight of the marker, and the sort of wetness that it leaves behind, and also into the buildings and stuff. So it's just nice to see it, because in some of the other ones, if we were to talk about the technicalities, you would, if it was only pen, there might be more lines in that
Mhm.
sky to sort of make up for some of the space that the Prismacolor marker is kind of taking in this particular drawing.
Yeah, no, and it's exactly right. And it was as I started it, and part of it was because it's so big. I mean, it's a much bigger sketch. Some of the effectiveness of that sky on the small sketches is sort of the frenetic aspect of all the lines running parallel to one another, and even with the spacing being varied, but on a bigger page with a bigger image, sort of scaling things up, sort of super scale. It I knew that I was going to try and paint the lines in between, or paint the space in between. Wasn't sure exactly how it was going to come out, but I think it was really, really successful. Tried a different technique with the pen so that it felt more like a brush stroke.
Okay.
Hadn't done that in a while, so that was a little bit of trick with the Prismacolor. But what's interesting is one of the building that's in the background behind the one that has the mural on it is a really dark faced, almost granite colored building. And so there I use that sort of really, really fine line technique to kind of get the added texture and darkness of the space.
Yeah. I mean, it has that, I mean, I could see the dark in the Prismacolor, and I mean, the depth in it too. It's receding into the background. And I know, so this soccer player too, though, was actually live. Like, are you on site with this, or is it a collage?
I was on site for the buildings, but the person is out of my head.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering, it started to sound, when you were describing it, like if it was like a sort of promotional event or something,
Oh, right.
where
No.
they had people kind of around downtown. But it's cool that you picked a sort of pose and posture, and the stippling technique in the soccer ball,
Yeah,
and in
no,
the grass.
thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, and so I started the sketch on site and blocked it in, took a photograph of it, and then that was about a 10-minute sketch, and then went back to the studio and sort of did the full-blown version.
Ah, cool. Yeah, very cool. The
But
oh,
yeah,
sorry.
poster art. So this is I haven't done poster art in a while, so this was my nice experiment with that. So I'm glad I got to share it with you.
Yeah, thanks. And actually, so the run, so now you showed me some of the Photoshop work. So is it already done now at this point? So did you
Well,
use, what kind of printing technique? Is it like a simple inkjet?
yeah, just they're just
Um,
they're just printing them inkjet. So
cool. Cool.
yeah, so one of those will be slipped in the mail for you. But
Oh, cool. That'd be great. Because as you could see,
yeah, you've got some room on the shelf.
there's
So
not a lot of decoration going on in here. Could use a little help. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, thanks for, yeah, this is fun to kind of uh pull a recent drawing together, and I look forward to seeing the finished artwork.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
thanks for obliging my diversions toward talking about some of the schoolwork. It's been fun, as time consuming as it can be. I still enjoy the teaching aspect. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that I guess I didn't think would take a lot of time, but those things do a little eat into the day a little.
Yeah. Everything ends up taking up a little bit more. Yeah. But
admin time.
Right. Well, but the thing is that it's very evident when you talk about it how much it means to you. So keep at it, my friend.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And I guess on that note, we will let everybody go. So thanks.
Yeah. Getting close to 100.